Welcome to the Tales of Phoebe. My name's Terry and I'm the owner of a 1957 Series 2 Morris Isis Deluxe.
The Morris Isis was introduced as a 6-cylinder saloon, tourer and coupe in 1929. The first series was replaced in 1935 with the Morris Big 6 series, which was discontinued in 1939 due to the outbreak of World War II. Morris 6-cylinder cars were reintroduced in 1949 with the Morris 6 MS series, a split-screen predecessor to Phoebe. With the introduction of curved windscreens, the MS was replaced by the Morris Isis Series 1 in 1955 and subsequently the Morris Isis Series 2 in 1956. Production of the Series 2 models continued until 1958, but due to poor sales, the 6-cylinder Morris ended along with the Isis name.
The purpose of these videos is to follow my journey restoring Phoebe back to a roadworthy car. When I bought Phoebe about 5 years ago, she was more or less roadworthy then, but had a number of fairly significant problems, including some bodywork issues. Since then, the bodywork has been fully restored back to bare metal and repainted in the original colours of black over Swiss grey. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago the head gasket failed on Phoebe, and whilst it was replaced once, the car began overheating again, and therefore I've decided to remove the engine and strip it right down and cleaning it out fully before putting it back together and hopefully getting her running again. There were only about 12,500 Morris Isis actually built and sold, and there are believed to be only about 30 of them on the road today in the UK. The main reason why Phoebe is regarded as a deluxe model is because she comes with a heater, which doesn't seem particularly luxurious nowadays, but back in the 1950s that was quite a useful add-on.
My YouTube channel has a detailed video of Phoebe before restoration, so please do take a look at that, but it might be useful to briefly view Phoebe as she is today. Another aspect of the deluxe models is the duotone paint, essentially two colours, with one for the top and rear of the car and the second colour for the lower and front end. These are divided by decorative chrome strips down the sides of the bodywork.
Okay, so this is the engine bay, and this features the BMCC series 6-cylinder engine, 2639cc, and I'm going to be taking the engine and the gearbox out all in one unit. Whilst I've done quite a bit of work on Phoebe before, I'm certainly not a mechanic, and I'm bound sure to make an awful lot of mistakes. So please bear with me if I do, and feel free to let me have any suggestions of how I could do things better. So I think the first thing to do, as I've been advised to do, is to take the front grille and radiator off before doing anything else, because then that gives quite a lot of room for the engine to be pulled forward once it's been disconnected. So I'm going to get on with starting to undo some of these nuts and bolts holding the front grille on and removing the front bumper. So the top of the grille is held on by just 4 screws, as you can see here. I'll get on and undo those now. So as you can see, the top of the grille has now been removed, and I'm going to move on to the front bumper. The front bumper is held on by a number of bolts underneath and to the rear, so I'm going to get down under there and remove those and take the bumper off. As you can see, the front bumper is now off.
It attaches by 4 5/8 inch bolts to these large steel bars, which themselves are attached to the chassis. I've put the bolts back in to the rear of the bumper to make sure they don't get lost. The bumper is also held on at each end by a 1/2 inch bolt with a white plastic spacer and washers like this one. Again, I'm going to put these back into the bumper in order to keep them safe. The next thing we need to remove are the 2 side lights. Now the side lights, as you can see, are held in by 2 screws, one of which attaches to the centre panel here and one of which attaches to the wing over here. So we can't remove the centre panel without the lights being removed first, so that's next on the list. With the front cover of the side light removed, you can see there are 2 bolts here and here which hold the back plate of the light onto the body. So next is to remove them. Okay, that's the back plate detached from the bodywork. As you can see, there's a foam filler here and a metal back plate here and a couple of other back plates behind, including what appears to be a piece of gasket paper, presumably for to protect the bodywork and perhaps prevent moisture getting in. There's also the electrical connector, which is on the back, and that simply pulls off. Okay, so that's both side lights off, and the next thing to do is to remove this chrome decoration piece. That's held on with 4 bolts underneath and behind it, which we have to get up with a spanner. So I'll take that off now. Looking at this chrome piece, those bolts underneath the chrome are quite difficult to get at, so I'm going to get at them from underneath and from the rear and take the nuts off it and do it that way. Okay, so I've got the bolts off holding the chrome decoration piece on the front, and it's still not coming off. And the reason for this is there are a number of screws holding it to these pillars here and here and on the other side, and a couple of screws holding it in down at the bottom. So what I'm going to do now is look at undoing the bolts that hold the whole of the front plate to the radiator and to the bodywork down this side, as you probably can't see very well there. There are 5 on each side, 3 attached to the radiator and 2 to the bodywork, so I'm going to remove those now. So as we can see, the front panel has now been removed from the car. A couple of things to note. Down here is the bonnet release. That's just held in by a pin, which is held in turn by a cotter pin and a washer, which had to be removed. And I've also reaffixed the top nuts on either side of the radiator, so the radiator doesn't fall down and damage. So the next thing I need to do is to remove the radiator, disconnect the hoses from the radiator and drain it. There's a drain tap at the bottom right hand side of the radiator, which I'll show you now. There you can see the drain tap, and once that's opened, any remaining liquid in the radiator will be removed. There is a further
drain tap on this car, which is at the bottom of the block. You can't see it at the moment, but when we've taken some more of the components off of the engine, I'll show you then. Okay, so the drain tap's a bit stiff, and you might be able to see there's a little bit of residue on there. I don't know whether it's a little bit of corrosion or just the water from the radiator which has leaked out a little bit. So I'm going to spray it with some WD-40 and give that a few seconds to soak in. And hopefully then, with a little bit of gentle pressure, I'll be able to undo the tap. I don't want to force it for risk of snapping it off or anything like that. Okay, so I'm ready to have a go at undoing this tap now. I've got some long-nosed mole grips here, and that's now moving, and you can probably see a little bit of liquid coming out of the bottom of the radiator. I've got a bucket underneath in order to catch anything that comes out, but I'm not expecting vast amounts to be left in there, in all honesty. Whilst I'm waiting for the radiator to drain down, I thought I might show you these books, which are very helpful if you're going to do some work on a Morris Isis. The first one is the workshop manual. These regularly come up for sale on eBay for about £25, and they're a bit like a Haynes manual of their day, I suppose, although they're actually produced by the factories for the engineers to work on the cars rather than for DIYers. And also you can get a book which is the service parts list, which has all the original service parts numbers, but it also has some excellent diagrams showing all of the individual constituent parts of each part of the car, including bodywork, electricals, the engine and so on. And this is probably even more invaluable than the workshop manual itself, because you can identify parts very quickly and easily in here. Again, the service parts list is regularly up for sale on eBay for about £25. All I would say is, with the workshop manual, if you do decide to get yourself one, then make sure it's been updated to the latest versions, because there are different versions and updates that have to get slotted in as the cars progressed and were changed slightly in their design. Okay, so as you can see, the water has finished draining from the radiator. I also undid the pipes to the heater, which are at the back there, in order to ensure there's no water left in the system from the heater as well. There may be still a little bit of water left in the bottom of the block of the engine, which I won't get to until I undo the block drain, but there's about 8 pints of water have come out, and I believe the system holds about 13 or 14 pints of water in total. So clearly the engine has lost half of its water at some point. So I'm now going to remove the radiator. That means disconnecting the top hose here, and additionally disconnecting the bottom hose, which is down there, and remove the two nuts that I replaced to keep the radiator in position whilst I drained the system. So I'll now remove those and take the radiator off. Okay, so the radiator is now off. It was a bit of a faff getting the top and bottom hoses off. They were quite tightly held on and they got a bit stuck over the years. So it's actually easier to remove them from the engine block ends rather than from the radiator end. But anyway, it came off good as gold eventually. Looking at the manual, it's in fact 24 pints of water that this system holds, so the car's actually lost 3/4 of its water somewhere along the way, which is obviously quite significant. And you can now see the engine without the radiator on the front. Looking at the engine from the front, we have the fan here, which is driven by the engine via the pulleys. They're not normally silver, but I painted mine silver because I like the look of it. There's a timing mark that I painted on previously there. Again, that's not normally painted on, but that's the timing cover. We have water pump. This is the rear of the dynamo, thermostat housing in here, and they're the main bits, and that's the starting dog down here for if you use the starting handle.
Well, that's all for this first episode of the Tales of Phoebe. I hope it has been useful to some and entertaining to others, and enjoyable for everyone. If you have enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up to like it, and if possible, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and see you next time for episode 2.